Hi everyone. So today I have got like a very special person with me, Federico Lara.
You're
He's
you're the special person. You're the special person.
I
Come
know
on.
we're gonna have like a good chat. I know, but you're special too because two special people actually talk to each other. Then the special thing happens.
Two special
So
people that completely disagree on 90% of the items. So that
that's
was
right,
makes
and
it a very good conversation,
that's where the real
right?
conversation comes out. And the good thing is that I mean you didn't even finish me let me finish the introduction. So I mean that's the good thing about it. So there we
Go
go.
ahead.
We already started on this. So anyhow, so Fred is a good friend of mine. We actually met about a year ago in Switzerland, and that's when we started having different conversations. And we thought we're just totally opposite, 180 degrees on the actual different concepts of how the startups actually grow and how the things works in different ecosystems and everything. And then we spent like I think a few hours. When did we start? Like I think about 11ish or 12 midnight, something like that. And then we ended
Yeah, it
up
ended up around 3 to 4 a.m.
4 a.m. So like it was just such a heated debate and different topics and everything. And then we realized that no, there were like certain things, certain good things kind of like came out. I started thinking, started to revisit my thought process that okay, there could be some element of truth in Fed's what he's saying. So basically, the point was that okay, how can we actually meet and find the things which going to be actually more important to the ecosystems and that could kind of help us in building the right ones. So my
Certainly.
my opinion was first of all let's focus on Federico. Could you please tell us a little bit about yourselves, your background, what you are doing these days,
Certainly.
and all of it?
Certainly. I'm going to see if I can continue with just speakers on the computer. Because I think that's how you're doing it.
Sure, sure.
I don't want to double echo, that's all. So,
So
can you hear me
as long as
now?
you don't have too much like background noise, that should be fine.
No background noise. Is
Okay, great.
that all right?
Yeah.
You still hear me good?
Yeah.
Excellent. So, I want to say hello to everybody. It's my first time ever speaking to such a wonderful and community that's literally we're world away, but we're so close because we love your culture so much here in the Americas. My name is Federico Lara. I was born and raised in the United States. My favorite town, I born and raised is Greenwich, Connecticut. But my love of city is New York City, which I am based out of, where I am a proud member of what we call our startup community, not our startup ecosystem, or how I prefer to say startup ego system, because I think that's all it feeds. And we've been creating technologies and startups since the year 2000. And we have, in that time, have about sold 4 startups, 3 which we created, 1 which we invested, and the last startup was sold a little over 2.5 years ago to FedEx, the first startup FedEx ever purchased, for the largest exit price in Latin America in more than 10 years. And what makes the conversation interesting and why we actually started speaking back and forth was the fact that I am not an entrepreneur, nor do I believe in the methodologies associated with creating startups, due to the fact that startups have been around since the 1970s, and it really the people that are trying to define it have only been college professors and a few other business-oriented people, and they're trying to define something that really cannot be labeled or define something that's evolving. So I hope that's a small but good intro.
Good, Federico. Thank you for like doing. I think it's creating an echo. I don't know. Maybe your settings are a little bit. So I think you probably would have to actually headphones. So
Okay, you want me to put the headphones back on?
because I can hear myself and maybe viewers can also hear.
Got it. All right, I'm gonna try it again.
Yeah.
Hold on a second.
And I think you are using a Windows laptop.
I am using my Alienware laptop that actually simulates Windows, but that's all right because I don't want to feed the Apple.
As Guy Kawasaki says, it takes about 40 minutes to set up the presentation on Windows.
Yes, I agree.
All right. Okay. So moving on to the actual topic. I mean, I was viewers. I was like a big advocate of lean startup methodology, and then you have to actually. I don't know how many of you actually know about the lean startup methodology, which is to actually create a minimum viable product, which is to. I mean, in a simplest way, that's how you can actually explain that the product you are actually trying to make, it has to be minimum, it has to be viable, and then you actually take it to the market, and then the people start using it. And once they start using it, you start to get the feedback from them. And then once you get the feedback from them, you start to improve the product. And then obviously product gets improved over the time. So that's in a nutshell, basically. But then when I started throwing all this, and then I started going deep into it, started looking into different product cycles, how Steve Jobs used to perceive it, that people don't know what the market is, what do they need, and he started to actually. So basically, um, um, Federico actually said, what is minimum viable product? What is this? I mean, what are you talking about? This is not how you make the great, amazing products. So fire away, man.
No, it isn't actually, and that's the important part. Now let's make something clear. I do understand that most people get involved in startups because they're business oriented, meaning they're entrepreneurs, and meaning quite possibly, without having to go into further detail, their focus is to actually create a business, and that's okay. And I'm not against anybody trying to create a business or trying to feed themselves or become wealthy. I'm not against that. But the moment that we start saying that this is the absolute rule of what a startup is, that's when I started getting angry. The idea when you speak to somebody and they're creating a technology product, and you're saying, hey, what's your minimal viable product? What market, or what's your value added? The person says, well, I'm just creating a product. I'm trying to create the most, not a minimal product, but the most maximum product possible. This comes from our culture in the US. If you live in a city like New York, you're completely surrounded by things at the highest level. Not necessarily because it's expensive, but you're bombarded by artwork. If you want to see a Picasso, you can go down the street 2 blocks and you're literally looking one-on-one at a Picasso. If you want to hear a great band, they're probably playing at one of the hottest clubs at night, or maybe at the stadium. And fashion is all over the place. So what happens is we as individuals are bombarded with so much product at such a high level that when we, in our own world, in our own ability, whether it's food, whether it's fashion, or in our case technology, we feel extremely pushed to make the best product possible. And to make the best product possible, we're not that different from everybody else. I mean, you don't see Kurt Cobain go into a crowd of people and saying, I'm going to play you a couple of chords. Let me pitch you this idea for a song, and let me get your feedback, and I'm going to make Smells Like Teen Spirit. we don't build with that ideology. We are completely and constantly competitive. We are bombarded by gigantic amounts of expectations at the highest levels. So even nothing we do is minimal. Nothing we do is small. And that is something that we are born and raised.
Let me interject here, Federico. Okay, so fine. I get your point that, okay, we are not actually building a minimum thing. We are building a maximum thing. It has to be really good. It has to be humongous. We're going to build a jumbo jet, whatever, like 787. We're going to have like A380. But the point is, in order to actually get to A380, you have to actually have a Cessna, and then learn from
who?
Okay, so tell me about it.
Well, how do we get
to start flying first before we actually get to the point where we're gonna have A380?
Yeah. Well, that's the point, is that there isn't a magic. One of the people that I admire more than anybody, one of them is called Tom Ford. Tom Ford, I suggest if anybody takes something from this podcast, look into Tom Ford. This is a gentleman that, from a very young age, moved to New York. He's not from New York City. Actually graduated as an architect from Parsons School of Design, and in a few years became the head of creative at Gucci. Now that may mean nothing to anybody, right? But then after that, launching his own brand, becoming a gigantic brand. And then on top of that, every time he gets bored, he directs 2 movies that both have Oscar nominated. What I'm trying to say is there's something called talent. There's something called unique talent. And no book in the world is going to tell you that or teach you that. No university course or 5-weekend thing is going to do that. Just like there are people that can really hit a cricket ball, there are people that really are so amazingly focused on creating such an amazing product. And the entrepreneurs in our world in the US mostly cannot create that stuff, but they find people that do. And those people that they find that do, they make sure they take care of them, they make sure they invest in them, they make sure they keep doing that, but they don't mess with the magic. That's our point here. In our group, for example, at Cross Border, we hire people that only created product. We don't hire because you're a great engineer and you know how to put really good code. If you have not created product or at least contributed to the open source community on a technology level, we're not interested. We are product creators. We go upon product the way artists and musicians and painters do, creativity and vision. I know that may not sound what you guys may think about, but it is the only way that we know to always be first because we're the first to do it. And the people in the tech community, all right.
Okay, I understand. I understand your point of view that, okay, it has to be very unique. It has to be with the 100% perfection in a mind. That's when you have to actually approach things. Is that what it is?
It's not about perfection. It's not about perfection, not at all. It's not about testing. It's not about that. It's literally about finding these very key people that can look at the world in a very different way and do not. And I mean, in the whole feedback loop and let's iterate and let's like all that stuff. What it does is create a minimum product, and you'll always stay minimum because you're always creating for the minimum situation. It really removes risk. If you look at minimum viable product, or if you look at the canvas, if you look at all these tools, if you really look at the core of it, you're trying to reduce risk because you're risk adverse, right? And of course, when you're living in a third world nation where your next decision could be your food or your death, I get it. Latin America, we have these things again, but we are so risk adverse that we never explore new ideas. And we let other people explore those ideas. And then by the time we solve our problems, they come in here and redefine our world.
Okay, are you saying
that is the issue?
Let me say that. Okay, are you saying let's say spend like $5 million on something, building it takes 2 years, and then take it to the market, and then realize that nobody's going to actually buy it? What do you?
Well, that's the thing is that we're not. You're talking about a buy-sell scenario. We're not buying or selling. We're just creating. But we're not talking about $5 million. We're talking about one person. Forget the whole team idea. Forget accelerators and methodologies and all that kind. You have a computer. You have code. You have a vision. There are people that write songs with one guitar. It's a lot greater when you have a team. I'm not saying that a team doesn't help. What I'm trying to say is sometimes we have to go at it alone. You, Khurram, have had to go at it alone in your life, haven't you? At times.
Everybody has,
right? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You had to get home somehow, right? And no matter how many friends you had to go, well, I got to keep walking. Take that moment, that attitude, that moment that you had to get out of it alone, take that, now apply it to creating technology. That's what we're talking about. It's not about the $5 million investment. You know how much I invest when the startup comes up to me? I give him $10,000 cash. I'm like, let me see what you can do with 10 G's. I'm serious. Here it is. It's not a loan. It's money right here. I don't want business model. Now, they can't do anything with 10,000. You think I'm going to give them 50,000? I'm giving them 100,000. It's not going to happen.
Let me throw a curveball. Okay, so Bilal says it's necessary to get the IP rights as the MVP level to avoid any failed attempts. So basically, unless we have, let's say you're building, fine, you're saying like you are actually building for one person, and he's going to build a great product, but then obviously you have to actually sell it to many people. And then when you actually sell it to many people, then you have to actually have the building blocks. When you have a building blocks, one of it is actually securing the IP. So I mean, unless you're going to have a bigger thing, then okay, fire away. Go ahead.
Sure. No, I agree. I completely understand what you're saying. In a traditional business scenario, whenever you create a new product or services, you always have to say, how do I protect it, right? Or how do I, get it out there and market it and sell it? I get it, Khurram. I get it. But there's something wonderful between a community and an ecosystem. When we have a community, that means we're a bunch of people that have something in common. And what we have in common is technology creation or technology sharing. Now, you have to bear with me on this because this is an important element, because you're absolutely right. One of my biggest faults is that I can tell you how not to build it, and I can never tell you how we actually built it, right? So I want to be more specific, because tell me if that helps more, right?
Go ahead.
Well, we have a technology community. I want to use the perfect example. I suggest everybody to go out and buy Linux Magazine. Search it online, Linux Magazine. Go to a store. It's a magazine. It's been around for over 12 years. In that magazine, which I'm very happy and proud to say that almost every major city and town in the United States, we have that magazine. Maybe it's bought by 4 people, okay? Maybe it's not Wired Magazine. But in Linux Magazine, there's a phenomenal amount of technology products and services created around security, media, right? Even operating systems built by people from all over the world that are creating products. And here's the amazing thing about a community. When you're a part of this technology community of millions of users, right? Because that's what we are. Whenever we create a new product or service, we already have a sea of fans and people ready to receive it. We don't have to market it, right? We don't have to, start again and pitch it and sell it. We actually have a community. So I want you to pretend for one moment that in your country, there's so many people creating technology. There's so many different, from every level, from HTML to Java, you know what I mean? And they're every day just creating with no real reason or rhyme. That means that you have a captive audience of people that you're able to deliver your product into. And when they're able to see the product, they're able to go in immediately. Either they reject it or accept it. There is no feedback. There is anything like that. And about IP, the best place to be in our world is to be the first to do it and have evidence globally by many people that you did it the first. That's how we did it. In New York City, we had a community. We had people that just loved looking at technology. So whenever we released a product at a tech meetup, because that's how it usually happened, we had an audience of people just write about it, use it, some of them completely insulted. That's the difference when you build a community that's all about simply loving technology versus an ecosystem that's about building business. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, long sermon. I get some of it. Okay, so I don't know. We're gonna go on and on. I mean, I don't know, like where we're gonna end up on this, but I think there is some sort of like a middle path. I thought about it. I told you that I thought a lot about it. What you say, that it but my point is like it's entirely 180 degrees, and you're saying like, okay, scrap the whole idea of whole concept of minimum viable product. So I think it also depends on what you are building. So maybe like there is something which is
absolutely.
So
you're
yes,
right in
my
that.
question was, do you agree at least on this point that it depends on what you are building?
Absolutely,
Okay.
100%.
All
Yes,
right.
sir.
So at least we
If
agree
you're
on.
trying to build a business, we agree on that. If you're building, you want to build the next Subway sandwiches, please use Lean Startup.
All right.
You know what I mean? It already exists.
Okay, so
You want to build
put us down.
the next MongoDB, don't use Lean Startup. Create something, something unique. So that's the situation.
Okay, I think we get the gist of it. Like we get the point. Anyhow, I think I don't want to confuse the viewers too much on this because it's like an academic debate, and we both probably going to go on for a while on this. Every year we'll meet. We're going to talk about this. But what fascinated me during our recent conversation was the startup cargo cult concept you actually brought in.
Yeah, you liked that one, didn't you?
I loved it actually, although it was for you to counter me on some other point. But yeah, I started looking into it. I kind of like studied the whole concept, and then realized it. That's yeah, it's very true to very close to the actual reality on the ground. So um,
You know what I love about this? Even before we start, you know, I want to say, you know, I want to respect. We have to understand that we have a lot of logical, intelligent people in the technology and business and entrepreneurial world. I'm some of my best friends, like some of my best friends are entrepreneurs, and you guys are very bright, and you see a lot of the angles. I would say we technologists, we just see one angle. We just want to build, right? But so whenever a concept like this, like the cargo cult, which we're about to speak about, comes up, and it makes you go, "What the hell? You know, what on earth? This is." I mean, regardless of what I'm saying, you start taking the concept and then reflecting it upon your community. I think that's what makes it really intriguing. You know, like they say, the truth is self-evident, and this might be one of them. So.
no, thank you. I mean, that's our job. I mean, that's entrepreneur's job. I mean, unless they see behind the wall or they have the capability to see behind the wall what's coming next. I think like there's a major piece is missing from the any entrepreneurial individual if they aren't able to actually dissect the things and look at things critically, and that's our job, in fact. So, so
So I mean, I can get started if you want to get started. Whatever works best for you.
sure, sure. So I started looking into it. I did the post. I took out some article on the web and then told people, okay, this is the concept. I'm going to do the session on this particular topic with Federico, and then we're going to talk about it. So here we are. We have about 35 to 40 minutes or so, and that's what we're going to talk about. So it's very important for Pakistani perspective because basically what we are doing is we are building an ecosystem. As you profoundly hate the word, you profoundly hate the word itself, but what we okay without using the word, what's happening right now is like past 4 years ago there was nothing on the ground. I mean, I remember like in 2014 when we actually had the pitching session, we hardly could find about 3 startups who could actually pitch in front of the investors. Now in this year we're going to be actually having in about 15 cities we're going to have 200 startups pitch in front of the investors. I was in Karachi a couple of months ago in the event called Momentum, and in 2 days, we actually listened to 150 pitches in 2 days. So that's an incredible rate at which it's kind of exploding the whole concept. So, um, what do you think? I mean, especially from this sort of cargo cult perspective, we don't want to end up there. So, what do you
Yeah.
suggest?
Well, the
First of all,
first thing is,
I think I want to start from there where you started from. So tell us about the actual island.
Carco Cult? Yeah. Okay, I'll go through it really quickly. I'm happy that you already probably updated your community in regards to that, right?
Yeah.
So yes, in the island in specific, years ago, World War One, World War Two, unfortunately, many of the Western nations, like the United States, they would camp out at an island. Literally, they would take a boat full of soldiers and weapons and storage, and they would be waiting for an instruction to go attack where they need to get to, and instead of having to, how they say, bring everything back from the United States, right? And they would camp out for sometimes months and sometimes over a year. And the people that lived in these basically abandoned islands were people that had very little or no contact to the what we would call the modern world, native people. And the amazing thing about these native people is they were not aggressive. They were not. A lot of them were actually pretty timid, which is pretty interesting. I started thinking a lot about that too, that element, right? Because when they saw these new people arrive, they didn't attack them, they didn't do anything. They just started observing them. And they immediately were fascinated by them and their technology. right? So you start seeing the parallels, right? Native people, low resources, and they're captivated by their technology. And they started seeing, how they set themselves up. So when a small army, platoon, or group would set up in an island, they would have to put up a wall extremely quickly to protect their armament. They would have planes ready, 2, 3, maybe 5 planes ready to fly and attacker planes, smaller ones. They had to set up food. They had to set up, sleeping. So imagine just like if an alien showed up at your door and set up a whole modern compound. It's pretty impressive for any human being, right? And they started trading because these people did not have a concept of money. They started trading for food and fruits, and they had something. So there was interactivity, but that interactivity was so basic. It was just, food, a mango for a shell. I don't know. And the amazing thing is that there was something really special, and this is where the cargo cult concept starts it. Once a month, or maybe every 2 weeks, they noticed that these new aliens, let's call them that. Sorry for the background noise. A gigantic plane would fly over the small island, something they never saw before, and drop from the sky these amazing boxes. And when the boxes landed and they opened it up, it had more technology and more food and more of everything that they already saw. Right? Yeah. And they would say this, it's the big bird, the magic bird would come every once a month and give us these amazing things, and they were happy. They loved this. And that kept going on 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, until the war is over. And when the war is over, everyone's got to pack up and leave. So I want you to make pretend that that beautiful alien group that just came down and showed you a new world is saying, gotta go. Nice, yeah. Thank you for having us, right? So therefore, the people were really saying, okay, they had to go. Maybe they have to go to another universe, but we're going to wait for the magic bird, because the magic bird they never actually touched. He just showed up. They waited a week. They waited 2 weeks. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. So one of them had a logistical idea. They said, maybe the magic bird is not coming because they don't see the people that used to be here. So what we're going to do is we're going to replicate. And if you look at the pictures, they're fascinating. Mm-hmm. How they would replicate the actual uniforms, goggles, helmets, weapons, even a mobile phone. They would structure it. And they would build these planes. They would build the barracks. And they would say, okay, we built it, Magic Bird, come on down. And the Magic Bird did not come down. But they're humans. Okay. I'm sure that it didn't take them one day. It is where I end the story. It didn't take them one day to rebuild that world. They had to come in from memory, and it probably took them a year. Maybe it took them 2 years, maybe even longer. Maybe it took them 7 years. And they said, the magic bird will come down when we get it right. You see the whole point here? So I want you to,
seriously.
So I want you to consider that with the ecosystem. Tell me where it's not the same, right? People of distant areas. I want you to take it over.
Okay, so fine. Once we get to this point, the point is, you actually make a product. You make a prototype. You just say that, okay, fine, I'm going to actually do a prototype, which you actually build in your garage or something, or in your bedroom. And maybe it's technical or not, you actually do that. But once it gets to the point when you actually have to produce 10,000 of them, there has to be a factory. And in order to actually have a factory, you have to have all the supplies, and you have to have like a ecosystem who can actually build you pipes, and you can supply you electricity, who can build you like, the builders can come in, they can actually have the roof, they can have the walls. So where would you put that? Fine. I mean, if you are so scared of like those, cult guys, I mean, how we should proceed?
Well, I think it's important to look at the technology communities that have been what we call them movements. The word
Uh-huh.
we use the word movements because we draw parallels with other movements, like the LA rock scene. All right, I'm talking about music here, right?
Sure.
Or we're talking the Seattle grunge scene,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or the New York City blues and jazz scene. That what happened was that in France or in Europe, the romantics and the modernists, right? What happens is you have a collection of a small amount of people, sometimes led with a lot of creativity, and they create a product, service, music, fashion, whatever you want to call it, and that somehow captures the local community. And what you're talking about, how do you get the money for it to make it massive? First, you make it big in that community. And that community starts buying small, starts going and meeting these. That's how the grunge scene comes up, right?
Yeah.
Only when you really wanted to take it globally do you then go to a record label. And the record labels are not in your hometown. The record labels are somewhere else, right? The record labels that have the big product and the big marketing money to actually sign your band from Boston and make it. And but the record labels that are New York City or they're out of LA, right, or London, right? It doesn't mean that every city, every town has to have Capitol Records or Sony Music. It doesn't. What it does need to do is have a way to create their own scene. And the way they create their own scene is by creating products, in this case, music or fashion or art, technology, that's really making a buzz in their own community. And that's how we do it. We don't go and say, let's build the record label with the record label executives, with the A&R, with the marketing budget, and build one in every town in the city, and then we start making music. It's really the opposite.
I don't know how we gonna meet at one point, on this.
Well, how about this? How about this? How about this? Can you see the? Can you tell me, Khurram, the parallels upon your own understanding of the cargo cult and the ecosystem?
No, I get your point. I mean, this is totally fine.
No,
Um,
but I think it's important that your community gets your real hardcore
okay,
perspective on that. I
okay.
can
Let
talk
me
all.
okay. Let me tell you what exactly is happening. So there was nothing, and obviously, uh, what fascinates me, the point from the startup cargo called the story is, once this is gonna disappear, what's gonna happen then? And that's the point fascinates me the most, because
Me
I
too.
I totally agree on this point that, okay, yes, the entrepreneur is. I mean, there was nothing in the valley. There was literally nothing in the valley when Apple, Microsoft came about. So I totally agree on this point. So the initial wave of entrepreneurs was produced without this ecosystem. And then my point comes in that, okay, if you have to actually produce or industrialize this whole concept of entrepreneurialism, then you have to actually start building factories who actually start to produce, or um, uh, those entrepreneurs in bulk. So you have to actually have some enabling elements into place. So what happens is, in the third world countries, or like where the emerging markets are, everybody is talking about their startups, and they are saying, okay, fine, if we try to do the exactly same thing what the valley did, we'll probably have the same results, which is not going to happen. I totally agree on this, obviously. So obviously this where the startup cult thing comes in, that, okay, if you try to actually build the same thing, the big huge giant bird is not going to come and then start dropping the stuff. So from that perspective, I totally agree, this is not going to happen. But the point is that the concept of actually building the enabling elements, um, is not necessarily we have to actually scrap the whole concept, because enabling elements do help the initial stage entrepreneurs. So, for instance, we have government actually started opening this national incubation centers in Pakistan. So, in 5 major cities, those incubation centers going to be happening. They're going to have like about 40 startups in one go. 40 startups in a year coming out of that. So at least the entrepreneurs who are going to be actually who were supposed to kind of grow their product or like grow their startup in their backyards or like actually have in garages or they're from bedrooms. Now I have a place to sit. So I commend the government for doing that, but at the same time, obviously, they're not going to actually go through this hard struggle which they need in the initial phase of the startup. Which I totally agree on this point. I totally agree with you. Actually, this is my
That's going to the gym, you know. That's going to the gym. That's taking it from the garage. You know, the word garage is interesting because that's where music comes from too.
yeah.
When a young band is coming together and they scrape any money they have selling what they need to get that guitar, right? They don't go to a studio right away. They don't go to the, you know, to the show. They got to work themselves up to that. And if they get discouraged before getting in there, so that's a gigantic problem. I mean, you love problems and solutions. The government throwing money to give these people the illusion of success, it will make even a bigger hurt than a positive. And that's what's happening in Latin America.
Okay, so I agree on this point, but at the same time, what I see good coming out of it is we're gonna have a lot of people will get attracted towards this whole, because it's a 5-star environment. Otherwise, they're not gonna actually get it. So they're gonna actually get the brand new laptop, or they get like some extra money every month. Yes, and then all of a sudden one day that the whole army is gonna go, and they're gonna be like, where's the big huge bird? So but then that
and before you pause for 1 second,
okay,
right? It's 2018, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Peru started to get into startups in 2011. I was here when it started doing it. Literally, I can know the date and time. 7 years later, brother, 7 years later, and they're still, you go to any of the leaders in the ecosystem here, and they all like say, we're still in diapers. Well, I don't know. If you have a 7-year-old boy in diapers, you got to ask yourself some questions. Do you see what I'm trying to say? And their other cop out, is how we call it, is they say, well, startups, most of them don't succeed. So not only is it the action, but it's the time involved throughout those 7 years. And this is really the core of the situation. What's happening with governments is a terrible thing for 2 reasons. And I promise, after you let me say this, I will just say one-word answers from this point on, if that's what you want. There's 2 things. The elephant in the room is connectivity. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. When Mark Zuckerberg came here last year to Peru, he didn't speak about ecosystems. He didn't speak about startups. He didn't speak about, accelerators and let me donate money so that more people can launch it. He only spoke about one thing. He says connectivity. Over 40% of the population in Peru, of 30 million people, are not connected. So therefore, you have a small population of the people, right, that actually have most of the money and the connectivity. So put yourself in government's head. Either I actually connect all my citizens, which would cost me billions of dollars, and maybe I don't want them connected. That's another conversation for another day, right? Or I can throw $20 million to the small group of people, of influential people, right? The richest people from the best universities, and so they can have their ecosystem. $2 billion, $20 million. The financials work out. At the end of the day, 7 years later, 40% are not connected. In the United States, it is now, internet connection is a civil right. And when we started building this thing in the United States in 1999, look, I feel like I'm an old man here, but we started in 1999. You know what the first thing they did? They didn't say we need more startups. They didn't say we need more IBMs, we need more Yahoos, we need more Netscapes. They didn't do that. They were paying anybody, like I said, any schmo, any jerk on the street. If you have a van and you want to put some cables, we'll pay that to go and get everybody connected. And that was our big thing. Can we have everybody connected? Once we have everybody connected, once we have technology as a standard instead of English, as a standard language, that will be the basis of our technological world.
Okay, I have a very good question. Okay, Bilal says, who is our elephant in the room?
Connectivity. What percentage of, who's the elephant? What is percentage of disconnected people in Pakistan?
Okay, fine. Forget about the disconnectivity. I mean, 2/3 of them are connected, so connectivity is there. But the point is,
connectivity is there. Two-thirds of them are connected.
They
are using the
are.
internet every day.
Okay, so the total population of Pakistan is about 220 million, anywhere between 200 and 220 million. Soon is going to be fourth biggest country of the world. So the government realized it over the time, and it's not government. Actually, the real example of acceleration in connectivity is a very good example in the world, in Pakistan. So about 2/3, which is about 135 million, people have got the mobile phone initially. That's, I'm talking about like literally about 5 years ago. So 5 years ago, 125 million people had the mobile phone. Now all of them are kind of upgraded to the smartphone. So in 5 years down the line, pretty much, and now the numbers are pretty much a lot more. I think a lot more than, maybe it's like 3/4 of the country has got the mobile phone. So and many of them have got not many, most of them have got like smartphones. Now, nobody uses that Nokia 3310 or something like that. So pretty much every phone is the smartphone. So connectivity is there. In fact, there's I recently saw a picture which was really ironic that, there was a great match, the cricket match, obviously, and they didn't have any way to actually watch it because there was no electricity in the village. So what they were doing, they actually hooked up a mobile phone, about like maybe 5.3 inches screen or something, and then on the actual selfie stick, and then selfie stick was kind of dug into the actual ground, was holding it, and then everybody was just kind of tune into the actual watching a match on the mobile phone. About 15 kids.
Excellent. So connectivity is not the big issue here, right?
It's not the big issue, but I mean, but the point is how we actually go from there. Because my biggest worry was obviously the same concept that, okay, because in our culture, parents actually pay their their students' fees. So for 4 years, up till the age of like 22, they don't actually go out in the market and then start earning their living. They don't know how to do the buying and selling. All they know is the buying. They don't know how to sell.
Correct. So let me pause on that for a second. So if connectivity is there, you guys are doing a great job. I commend that 100%. But that's only the first part. It's like saying we need televisions in every house, or the television shows are not going to make any money. Correct? Are you with me on that one? Right. So now you're saying we got more televisions coming. Great. But now we need actual content creators. Now, the amazing thing about the U.S. is that they made technology, and I took it in elementary school. I use tape decks. Technology is a standard. You have to actually learn technology, because if we don't have a fleet of people creating technology, we don't have anything for the technology to be built upon. How many people know HTML or any sort of programming language on a public school system? Is it even part of the public school system? Is it enforced?
Excellent. Pause it. Okay. Pause it. This is really good point. I think the conversation is going in the right direction. So now the point is, government has come in. They actually converted this one organization into. They changed the name, and which is the organization which is called Ignite, is actually building these national incubation centers all over. But they have another mandate, which is to kind of train about 100,000 people in next year or two. I don't know how they're going to do it, but they claim they're going to do it, is to train them on digi skills. Now, one element is, which is I'm pushing for, that ultimately we have to actually get our next generation come out of this typical classroom school system and then get them ready for the next fourth industrial wave. So what they are trying to do is they are taking those graduates, or like maybe have a 10-year education, and then taking those guys into getting them trained on like some programming, some Python, some Node, some whatever, and then get them to actually earn their own living or do a freelancing or something like that. But how we balance it? Do we have to actually change their whole educational system and convince them to? Is that what you're for?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is
no
not
longer an option.
Yeah,
This is no longer an option.
Okay. The point is, it's not just about the government, it's about the parents also. Once you actually tell them that there is a school where they're not going to teach you about chemistry, they're not going to teach you about biology, and you're not going to have like a second language, another course. All you're going to be learning is one language and then all computer programming.
A language that most machines can understand. You know, that's what it's about, right? So let me just finish one before I forget.
Yeah, Federico.
I know, but listen, brother. Look, okay, it's like in our technology community in New York City, we not only showed startups to each other and supported each other and made gigantic startups, which we are very proud to do, but we also fought together. We fought when the whole SOPA and PIPA, right? Acts and laws were being implemented in New York City, we protested, right? To sit down on Wall Street, right? We had people like Adam Schwartz coming in from Boston, the founder of Reddit, right? And he came, and there was a community of people of all different levels of economic power, right? To actually say to the government, what you're doing is wrong. Now, if you have an ecosystem that supposedly will attract, as you say, the cream of the crop, because there gives them initiatives and all that stuff, that means you're collecting a lot of intelligent people that may have the mental ability and physical ability to really recreate your country. But will they ever protest against the government? Will they ever tell the government they are wrong, especially in this area? How can they do that if they're also receiving a check from the government? And that's what ultimately, that's the brilliant idea. I'm going to create an ecosystem. I'm going to have the government fund it. Not one startup that has one Startup Peru will ever go and say to the government, why are my people not connected? I'm great that you guys connected. So it's a brilliant fucking idea. Let's create an ecosystem. Let's get everybody in all the universities together. Let us fund it. They'll never protest against us. They'll always be happy with what we're giving to them. That is my biggest fear.
I think I don't have this worry residing somewhere back in my head. Not at all, because we are like kind of a different people. I mean, everybody wants to actually. I mean, we don't stand in one line. They cannot. There cannot be a leader in our nation when it comes down to. So they just go in all directions. So it's very hard to actually kind of hold them together. In fact. So that's not my bigger worry. My biggest worry is that cargo cult version of it. So once this is going to disappear, what's going to happen? Because these guys are not going to be ready to actually kind of grow their own crop and then survive by themselves, because there's not going to be big bird coming in. So that's
Khurram, can you give me at least a time? You're logical, man. You're an intelligent man, and can you say, let's say the ecosystem that you're building, how much time do you want to give it? Or does it even matter? Is the point to build the ecosystem, or the point to build great technology and great startups? Because you can build an amazing ecosystem and you can make that thing run for 10 years without sweating. Because you're like, well, it doesn't matter the results, we have our ecosystem. So is it about the ecosystem, or is it about the technology products? At some point, you will have to choose. Especially if you're in a case like Peru, they're going on their 7th year. How much more are they going to wait?
Okay,
another 3 years?
Before moving on to the time element, okay, what I really value is this buzz. This buzz cannot create unless there are like all the forces are moving in one direction, which is the government, which is the educational institutes, which is the the freelancers, which is general entrepreneurs. This buzz doesn't get created. So for instance, all of a sudden you cannot put the whole country into the fever of entrepreneurialism, because not many people are going to be talking about it. So media has to come forward Government has to come forward, and everybody has to actually sell this, product. And the entrepreneurship is the next big thing. You have to actually send your next generation into the schools. They have to learn it. They have to actually create their startups. They have to do this, blah, blah, blah. So the whole nation actually gets into this fever of entrepreneurialism. So I really value that. So once they are actually there, that's where the problem is. After that, what's going to happen? So I really value that they have actually created this environment that, all of a sudden parents are realizing that, okay, it's a viable path. Before, the kids used to actually go to the parents and say, like, okay, we want to actually build their own startup. They say, what the hell is a startup? So they had no idea what a startup is. So
well, hold on. Look at Israel. Look at Israel, for example. People say startup nation, Israel, right? Oh, startup, entrepreneurs, ecosystem, startups, right? Everybody ignores the fact that for the last 40 years, every citizen from Israel, men and women, have to go to the army. And in the army, you either once you got through training, which I'm sure was bad enough, you actually you want the weapon or you want the laptop.
Correct.
That's what it is, right? And what did that do? It forced a lot of people on a massive level to have technology as an integral part of their existence. You have that many people having technology on that, they're going to build something, brother. They're going to build it. That did not happen in all these places around the world. There's a bigger story involved in here. How can the ecosystem is the mechanical, right? The cart before the horse. The horse is the organic, the ecosystem is the cart. The cart, because you can make a cart. You can make a wheel, you can make the thing, you can line it up, that's the cart. The horse is the organic, the human element, the part you can't invent. You cannot invent that part. So at the end of the day, you have a beautiful cart and a very little horse trying to pull it. Where do you actually develop the talent? I'm not talking about the pitching, the selling, the market analyzation. Where do you develop the creative talent for the person to make these threat to Oracle, to threat IBM, right? To recreate social commerce, not just let Facebook and Snapchat take it. Where do you get those ideas? Something to think about.
Okay, let me share what we tried to do at JumpStart. So what we did, we said, okay, fine, this is not going to work. This buzz is created. What are you going to do with it? So everybody's talking about this. What we actually met in the middle. So we thought, okay, fine. We're not going to go to that extreme where we're not going to actually provide them enabling environment, or we're not going to go to that extreme that we're going to actually have everything ready for them, that, okay, come and sit and work at this place, and we're going to give you the money, and then we're going to give you the tools, we're going to give you, and here's the team, work with it. And here's the grand scheme of things in which you can actually make, and here's the plan. So, so we're not going to go to that extreme either. So what is the middle way that they are able to actually find their own way? And then also they have some sort of support. So when they actually, because this is their first journey, they're going to be getting on this bandwagon because everybody's telling them to actually have their own startup, and that's a cool thing now in the market, that, okay, I have my own startup. So so what would make sure that they are actually successful? So what we actually tried to do was put them together with in a typical way, angel investor. And that angel investor, we actually named them shepherd. So the shepherd is the person who has actually walked that path for 15, 20 years. He knows the ecosystem.
15, 20 years? How can 15, 20 years?
Okay, so the ecosystem wasn't there, but he actually knows how to map that path.
What path?
Okay, just a minute. Hold on a sec.
I'm serious. What's the path?
I'm telling you, he has got his own unique journey. I know.
You mean talk about a rich, a technically successful businessman?
Correct.
A woman.
Or a woman.
I'm not going to go meet with. Yeah, I'm not going to go meet with the guy who created Dunkin' Donuts. I'm sure he's very smart. But I'm not creating donuts.
Okay, he's smart, but at the same time, he's actually successfully turned some companies. He probably failed in 4 of them, and then being successful in 2 of them. So I'm talking about that.
Yeah.
And he has some money to invest in startups. So this guy has got all the experience at his hand, how to maneuver in this kind of, in this
How to
way.
make the business that they made, not necessarily how to create a technology product.
Listen to me. Let me finish on this. So, okay, he has his own path. He walked that path, but then he has some sort of understanding. So now, once this guy actually invests his money into the startup, and this guy, he is there at least not to just, in your word, you don't want him to tell you that walk his path, but at least he's there. He's saying, okay, this is what happened to me in the past when I was in this kind of situation. uh, Take it or leave it if you think you can learn something from it, but this guy is going to be there for him. And things like creating a company, so now creating a company is a particular process in any country, and this guy knows it. This is exact science. This is not a, a specific sort of experience that everybody would have, like a different experience. Yes, you would have some sort of like a different experience, that one guy actually went to the office, tried to open a company, and then office was closed, so he actually went into the second day, and the other guy actually got that done in the first day. That kind of variation you will get, but not more than that. So basically this guy is there, and then he's now you're not gonna like this word, so he's got empathetic towards this guy, that okay fine,
Empathetic toward this guy.
I know you're not gonna like this word, I understand that. So so once this guy is not feeling good, this is startup guy, he's there to kind of like say to him, like, fine, don't worry, this is what happened to me also, and you have to keep on going. What's wrong with that?
It's terrible. It's terrible. It's actually destructive.
So you
You
want
know, if
you want
no,
Shah to feed this guy all the time
well,
while he's
no, it's the reality. I mean, you guys are businessmen, right? Because you consider yourself entrepreneurs. And if you guys are businessmen, I'm sure you've studied John Paul Getty, right? At some
yeah.
point, the richest man in the world, right? You ever listen to what he actually says? Maybe you guys should maybe pick up one of his books instead of reading Lean Startup. All right, Jean Paul Getty is not a startup guy, since you say there's wisdom to be learned from non-startup guys. But you know what I love? I'm going to give you two quotes from Jean Paul Getty. One says, "I have the formula for success. The formula for success is wake up early, work late, and strike oil." Do you see what I'm trying to say? Right? That's one of the things that Jean Paul Getty says. The other thing that Jean Paul Getty says, in a rapid changing environment, which is what technology and startups are. We're not talking about making shoes here.
Okay.
Experience could be your worst enemy. In a rapid changing environment, experience could be your worst enemy. He didn't say that because it was funny. He said that because it is true. Now, I love the fact that you got investors, as we say in the United States, to put a skin in the game, right? They put their money where their mouth is.
What we are talking
I
about?
love that fact. I love that fact, but they don't know shit about what's happening. They know about what they do. I'm not an expert, man. And our group created an industry. We didn't adapt it. We didn't solve a problem. We created an industry. Not many times that happens in a lifetime, brother. All right. And I'm still not going to tell you I'm an expert. I can't tell you I'm an expert because there is no expertise. You got to be honest with your people. There is no formula. You can get away from risk as much as you want, but it's still there. The same things that apply on how things are made in the world, it's here and even faster and better and stronger. Look at Ready Player One as a movie. Ready Player One. Watch that movie. It's entertaining to some people. For some other people that are fast thinkers, it's not movie. It's a guidebook. This is what world is functioning. You guys don't even understand where technology comes from. You think it's some sort of a way of just doing business. You ever read William Gibson, 1970s writer that actually invented the word cyber? I mean, cybersecurity, hacker, log in, download. These are the origins of our philosophies. We look to those people when we create the next product. We don't look to these guys. That's the issue.
I know, Federico. Okay, here you go. Like, I mean, I wish we could take Federico as well. Okay, he says, I don't know whether you can actually see his comments, but let me put that.
I'm trying.
Okay.
Yes.
So without ecosystem, there is no culture. Without culture, Shift, nobody takes your young entrepreneurs seriously. There is no investment such as, which means no exponential growth, no go,
Correct.
no go home. Okay, so that's
Correct. That's his comment. Let me respond to that comment.
okay.
You see, the ecosystem could be built around an already creative movement. In New York City, we now have an ecosystem. I'm not going to lie to you. We do have investors. We do have a great platform, but that came after the fact. We rebuilt ourselves after the bubble burst. That's where we started. We started at the end. We started when there was nothing. Once there was actually something, once we actually had startups creating interesting things, that investors from California started putting up their offices in New York City, Union Square. It wasn't the before. You think people come after you, right? And they're going to give you money because of nothing? Come on, you're from the real world, all right? You're going to invest because you see something of value, and something of value has to prove itself. It's not the other way around. There is no ecosystem without product, without a movement. There is none of that. Just trying to build it is the cargo cult philosophy. If we build it, they will come.
We have to wrap it up. I think we're gonna have like a couple of more sessions. I think like this debate is gonna be a while, man.
Well, now you want to invite me to your country, and you have all your viewers hating me. So I don't know.
This is what the whole point is, to actually get the best out of the whole conversation, because we're gonna actually have you obviously to Pakistan soon. But at the same time, I think like we have to actually talk more about it, specifically on certain topics. But what I'll do, the first conversation I want it to be like just whatever we talk about, and that's what we did during this conversation. But next couple of them, I'm thinking like we can actually talk on specific topics, and then have like a very structured conversation, so we don't go like sideways. But we're gonna fight a lot,
and that's good. And that's good. And that's good. And that's what means we're communicating. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, it's going to come out of it. But I think we are already over 5 minutes. So thank you.
Got it. Let me shout out to Shahid Rana. Thank you for the comment. And Khurram Shahzad. I appreciate it. You know, we have a couple of fans out there. And then to Hassan Ahmad. Thank you, Mayor. Great to meet you guys. Hopefully see you in person.
Yeah, a lot of good comments came in, and by all means, actually, you can go back to them and reply that in text, and also I'll do that also. So
very good, Khurram.
Federico.
No, thank you very much. Thank you for your patience and your tolerance.
No, thank you.
A big hug out to you from Latin America, United States, to you guys and everybody out there. Love.
Loved talking to you. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Bye. Okay, guys, that was Federico, and he's a good friend, and you know how passionate he is. You know that the way he was talking and everything, and then we have like a number of differences in terms of how we approach things in terms of the ecosystem. So it was the talk. You can actually go back to it, maybe like and listen to it again. With headphones on, and then you'll realize that how constructive it is in order to actually relate to what's happening in Pakistan. So thank you for listening, and inshallah tomorrow I'm going to be actually talking about how we should create enterprise level education. So we are not, and this is what we talked about today as well, that enterprise education needs to be done at the school and college level. So I'll be with Amjad Parvez Saab. He's a very successful businessman. Now he's retired, but he doesn't want to retire. So mostly the conversation is going to be in English, but also we'll pitch in. He understands Urdu as well, and speaks as well. But we'll see. So we're going to be talking about the enterprise education tomorrow. About 10 p.m. So see you then, inshallah. Thank you for listening. मेरी तरफ से इजाजत, शुक्रिया बहुत बहुत. अस्सलाम वालेकुम व रहमतुल्लाहि